bit. Before anything could be stored, someone had to answer a deceptively simple question. What is the smallest possible piece of information a machine can work with? 1 bit. A single binary decision, on or off, 1 or 0. That's it. A punch card was the physical answer. A hole in cardboard, present or absent. The machine reads the pattern. If something happens, or it doesn't. Everything that followed, every file, every photo, every message, is just billions of these decisions stacked on top of each other. The punch card is gone. The logic behind it runs on every device you own, but 1 bit tells you almost nothing. Chain 8 of them together, and suddenly you can say something. Byte, 8 bits, 1 byte. And for the first time, you can represent a single character, 1 letter, 1 number, 1 symbol. Magnetic tape was one of the first media capable of storing bytes in meaningful quantities. Thin plastic, coated in iron oxide, spinning past a red right head that magnetized tiny regions to record data. Here's the part most people don't know. Tape never went away. It's still running inside enterprise data centers right now. Not as a legacy system on life support, but as a serious, actively used medium, because it stores more data per dollar than almost anything else. Slow and sequential, but cheap in ways that matter at scale. The byte gave data a unit. Tape gave it somewhere to live, but neither got it moving. If cost matters more than speed at scale, tape is still a serious answer. Most people would never guess it. Kilobyte, 1,000 bytes. Before the floppy disk, your data was locked to the machine it lived on. You couldn't move it, couldn't share it. Whatever you created stayed exactly where you made it. The floppy changed that, a magnetic disk inside a plastic shell. And suddenly, computing stopped being a solo, stationary activity. The 3.5-inch version held 1.44 megabytes, which sounds absurd now. But what it represented wasn't the storage, it was the portability. Once data could move, the only question was how fast and how far. Here's the reframe. The floppy's storage number was never the point. Every format that followed, CD, USB, cloud, was solving the same problem the floppy first named. The problem was what happened next, when the content itself started demanding more than a floppy could hold. Megabyte, 1,000 kilobytes. The compact disc launched in 1982 with around 700 megabytes, nearly 500 times a floppy. Music could ship without compromise. Software moved from a stack of floppies to a single disk. Games became richer. Encyclopedias migrated from entire shelves to a single shiny circle. The read mechanism was a laser tracing microscopic pits pressed into a reflective surface. No contact, no mechanical wear, in theory. In practice, one deep scratch in the wrong place made the whole disk unreadable. You've probably thrown away a disk because it skipped without thinking about what was on it. The format that replaced the floppy had its own brutal failure mode, just a different one, and a quieter one. And 700 megabytes felt like abundance in 1982. Right up until cameras went digital, music went lossless, and video arrived. Gigabyte, 1,000 megabytes, the unit that made storage feel genuinely personal. When flash-based USB drives arrived in the early 2000s, the floppy didn't fade out gradually. It looked ancient almost immediately. No moving parts. Plug it in, drag your files across, unplug it. Gigabytes small enough to clip onto a keychain. Here's what most people miss about USB drives. The format didn't just replace the floppy, it replaced the idea that storage had a home. Before USB, data lived on a machine. After it, data lived with a person. That shift is what made gigabytes feel personal in a way megabytes never did. The weakness was human. Drives get left in borrowed laptops, washed in pockets, forgotten in bags. Data degrades quietly over years, a problem most people never think about until it's too late. If reliability matters more than convenience, a small SSD beats a USB drive every time. A gigabyte fits in your pocket. But pockets aren't where serious storage lives. Terabyte, 1,000 gigabytes. This is where bulk storage lives. Entire media libraries, years of documents, raw video footage. IBM built the first hard drive in 1956, the size of a refrigerator. By the 1980s, it had shrunk enough for a personal computer, and that changed everything. Data no longer needed to be inserted or swapped out. It was simply there, permanent, instantly accessible. The mechanism is still the same. Magnetic platters spinning at thousands of revolutions per minute. A read/write arm sweeping fractions of a millimeter from the surface. That tolerance is why hard drives deliver more storage per dollar than almost any alternative, and why dropping a running drive is so much worse than it sounds. The arm grazes the platter. Data doesn't corrupt gradually. It disappears. Cheap per terabyte comes with a cost that isn't on the price tag. For bulk storage that rarely moves, backups, archives, media libraries, HDD makes sense. For anything you open daily, it doesn't. Petabyte, 1,000 terabytes. Most people will never own a petabyte. But here's the thing that reframes every slow computer you've ever used. Your old machine felt sluggish, not because the processor was slow. It was fine. It was waiting, constantly, for the hard drive to catch up. The bottleneck wasn't the chip. It was storage. Solid-state drives stored data in flash memory chips with no moving parts. Machines that took minutes to boot started doing so in 15 seconds. Applications launched before you'd finished clicking. The entire experience shifted, not because processors got faster, but because storage stopped being the bottleneck. If your machine still has a spinning hard drive and feels slow, that's why. An SSD swap remains the highest impact upgrade most computers can receive. Exabyte, 1,000 petabytes. An exabyte only makes sense when you stop thinking about devices and start thinking about infrastructure at civilization scale. Cloud storage is where exabytes live. Files on remote servers distributed across data centers worldwide, accessible from anywhere, recoverable even if your hardware fails. The cloud didn't just solve a storage problem, it changed the relationship between people and their data. Automatic backups, real-time collaboration, access across every screen you own, once requiring real effort, now invisible. Most people can't tell you where their photos actually live. That's the point.